Hi, this is Sean at 7442 Analytics. Real quick, I'm going to show you some of the results based on a conversation I had applying the spiral basics to the S&P 500 E-mini contract. What happened, I was in a car accident last week. It wasn't a big accident. I got bumped in the head, cut, but during that car accident I had this strange revelation, let's say. I don't know how you want to describe it, but I was sitting at a red light and someone smashed me from behind, and I went to the person's to go get his. I was very upset, talked to the person who hit me, and I looked on his dashboard, and when I saw there, I was hit with this revelation that I have to get back doing the spiral. And I'm creating this video because another person that used to use the SAS application, the real-time market bias application, suggested I create and go back and look at the data and see how it's worked since the last time I really looked at it back in 2016. So if you've never watched the broadcast before, I'm going to explain what I did for a couple of years live, and then look what I did this weekend based on a suggestion by a previous user that's been helping me along. So number one, you should know I am the logo. It's 7442. 44 divided by 7, as you know, equals 2 pi. Get out your calculator. The logo is the spiral. And 7442 is my home address. Whatever that's worth. So let's move a little bit forward on this. As you might know, my background, if you watch the broadcast, was an Elliott wave. I never heard of Elliott wave until about 1984 when a person I met on the trading floor named Tony Santoro gave me his copy of the Elliott wave principle. And I thought it was subjective and it didn't have any trading rules in it, and that was the impetus for me to write the market bias manual and create the time labeling tool to track the spiral. And then the z-factor calculations came about by another suggestion by a person that measured the length of the spiral, etc. But that was all kind of before I had a strange revelation. In 2013, I was sitting at work, 2003 rather, sitting at work, and I don't know what it was, but in a split second, my mind was flooded with these algorithms. Okay, so if you watch the broadcast, you know that. And I didn't know what it was, so was it a wheel inside of a wheel? Didn't know, as you can see in the upper left corner of that famous picture. I forgot who drew it. But looking through to see eternity, I think that's supposed to be Ezekiel. You can check it out. But what I saw in that vision, which I call the vision thing, was this spiral. Right? So I have an arrow pointing right at the wheel inside a wheel. Those were the topics of conversation during the broadcast, so I'll go through that real quick, as I said, and clean off the board. And what happened was, with those calculations, we had the spiral. Okay, so that's the XY frame of the spiral. There's Y, here's X. Right? And that's looking right down the Z-axis. The real question was this spiral actually God? The question we discussed was everything predetermined by and governed by this spiral, right? Can we pre-compute market price behavior into the infinite future? Was this spiral actually governing market prices? And I'm going to show you the results from 2017 and 2018. So this again is an overview of our discussions we had in the previous broadcast. As you can see, the question was, is in fact the spiral the alpha and the omega, governing all things into the infinite future with light? So I have the omega is red, is purple. You get it? Is the spiral Ya? They. Heavy. Very heavy. So that was our topic of conversation. And some people asked me in the past, I had a friend named Peter. I don't know how Peter's done. I knew he had cancer, he had his whole pelvis removed. But he was a friend of mine on the trading floor. And his work was in Gann. And we also talked about Gann's book, The Magic Word, and the illustrations you could use from the spiral components to understand the work that was done by Gann. In this case, I showed this one of the broadcasts. This is from the Magic Word, one illustration. I am God, love, faith, Jehovah, Yah. And then I drew it on the spiral. Right? So the real question is everything predetermined and governed by that spiral using light? No. The key is that spiral really a sphere with cherubim rotating inside the spiral, rotating the sphere known as Gilgalum? Didn't know. That was a topic of conversation. Right? Is that truly God sitting at a throne? Right? Right? Is that God? Crazy esoteric stuff with the wings of the cherub. Wearing a vest, as described in the book of Revelations, with a sword. Don't know. Don't know. But those are the topics of discussion. Is everything governed by that sphere? Suffer how Gilgalum. Google it. Right? That's what our discussions were about. Is in fact the sphere and the pulses, the acceleration field that's pulling Earth through space, forward and backward along the z-axis, rotating. Is it God? Right? Sitting on top of the cherub. Right. So that was the old conversations. Alright, so that's a catch-up on what we discussed. Do we care? Do we want to look into the science of it? So it can't be just mystical and esoteric. It had to be something that was, something that we can nail down, right? Scientific. In addition, I was contacted back in 2003 after this vision thing by a person by the name of Peter King in Toowoomba, Australia. I'm the other side of the planet away from Toowoomba. But he said, I've seen your spiral stuff, and it looks like the work of Walter Russell. The dimensions are exactly the same. 1, 0 to 4. It looks like Walter Russell's cosmic harp string diagrams. And I never heard of Walter Russell before. I thought it was very interesting. The dimensions and everything looked a lot like Walter Russell's work. So at a certain point, though, it had to make money, or it was all just BS. So in fact, is that spiral truly, God, as described in Dante's Paradiso with the spiral, right? Go Google it. Dante's Paradiso in the seventh heaven. That's the picture. And I have a copy here on my office wall. Because I thought it was. I think it was. Maybe it is. You decide. So we want to get past the esoteric. We don't want to really think of mysticism and whether we want to find out if in fact it's true. Can we take aspects of physics to see if in fact, like black hole electrodynamics, I got stacks of these textbooks. Stacks of them. I spent hundreds of dollars on these books. Thousands of papers, which we discussed in the broadcast. And so what I did is I looked at the spiral in its basic form, and we broke it into octets, or 8 components. So 45-degree angles. Okay, based on this labyrinth, let's call it, of different angles. Broke it down into 8 parts along the spherical surface and numbered them 1 through 8. Okay, the big blue eyeball. Alright, and then we wanted to look at what it really boiled down to was a chromacity diagram. The different frequencies of light going away and toward the sun. Okay, so this point right here would be the point, the angular point on the chromacity diagram in what light you'd be immersed in, whether it's red, green, blue. Okay. Using the visible light spectrum. And then we had it in its basic form. We have an octet charge array that was based on some other physics, okay, based on rotating toward and away from the sun and different acceleration and velocity around the spherical surface. So we had that discussion as well. We knocked off all the octets, quadrant 1, octet 1 and 2, quadrant 2, octet 3 and 4. As you can see, this is the spiral in the X, Y, looking head on, the top of the sphere, looking through the poles, and the blue shows it as a standing wave from above, rotating clockwise outward from the singularity, this way, collapsing to the singularity, and rotating counterclockwise in this direction. Simply put. So what I did this weekend, based on the suggestion and a little epiphany I had, because I broke down all those pieces again, as I'll show you, and we'll see what happens. So there's the sphere and a chromatic illustration of the sphere showing the pole point on February 5th and April 5th every year, and then going down to the South Pole. So the North Pole would be blue, the South Pole would be red, and that's based on quantum gravitational red shift and blue shifting, different frequencies of light. These are topics we discussed in the broadcast, and that the physics comes down to spherical wave fronts emanating from a point. Like I said, I have thousands of these papers and textbooks. So we have point care sphere, vector point, la 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 la, the electric field, magnetic field, etc. So again, we discussed that in the broadcast, and we explained the pull, the thrust of the pull of gravitation creates the thrust of radiation of light. Okay, things like that. And now, to get a little bit further into it, we talked about the work of Murray Gell-Mann, quantum chromodynamics. He got a PhD in quantum chromodynamics. Was a good friend of Richard Feynman. Okay, so Murray Gell-Mann is known as the man with 6 brains, or 7 brains, 5 brains. He started the Santa Fe Institute to do research in causality, complexity, etc. But the octet charge array is based on quantum chromodynamics. We talked about that. You got this paper to read it. You can. It's highly esoteric. Talk about subatomic particles, weak charms, up-down spin, la 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 la. And beyond that, we talked about Berry phase as well. Why the spiral behaves differently as it rotates around a Poincare sphere, which is the spiral. So this is one of the papers I have on geometric phase. In other words, it doesn't come back to zero based on the rotation around that spiral surface, also known as Panchatratanam phase and Berry phase, either in classical or in quantum mechanics. There's an illustration I'll show you. So it gets very dry and try to talk about spherical polar coordinates, angles, things like that. But it's kind of a refresher on what we discussed in the past during our broadcast, why the spiral, you need to have that unhomoly in there. In other words, it doesn't get back to the point where it started from, and why it would invert and have an inverse relationship and not follow the spiral. Okay, so again, we talked about all that in our conversation. So what I did this weekend, based on the suggestion and my little epiphany I had, was I took the 2017 Z-fact spiral calculations. I took the raw NASA data and I created all the components that I used in the past in 10-minute increments from 2017. There you have the spiral in 3 dimensions using 2 z-axes, SX, SY, SZE, SZS. Spiral radius, the envelope, and the SCX, that's the gravitational field pulling Earth through space, creating that spiral. So I took all these old components that we used to discuss, they're already pre-prepared, and then what I did is I imported actual market data. So what I did is I imported, copied, and pasted, and made sure that all the points matched up for the E-mini S&P 500. Okay, so this is the E-mini 10-minute data. Okay, and I want to use the simplest form of that octet charge array and see how well it did, because my friend in Dallas said, "Go ahead and get back doing this, Sean." When you start talking about God and esoteric things, it's, you start to it's like, why am I talking about this? I don't like it anymore. So let's try to approach it scientifically and use the open, high, low, close data here. And then what I did is I created an index that would say, okay, whether to buy or sell using the spiral components, and again that octet charge array. Okay, so I think it's this one. Yeah, using this array right here. And then I examined each combination of this octet charge array, whether it was moving, whether it would go up or down in price. So in other words, the argument was always, is the future predetermined? Can we predict market price behavior based on the rotational characteristics and the physics attributed to that spiral? Right? That was always the discussion. So we have pre-computed buy and sell signals into the infinite future. So I used 10-minute increments, and I have not looked at the spiral and these components until this weekend. Okay? So let's look at the results. I went through each of the combinations, keeping it simple, without any other indices, variables based on rotation, etc. So in 2017, the S&P 500 made, if you just bought and held it, it made $21,300. Okay, so I just took the opening on January 1st, whatever the date was. We can look to be more specific. So on this side over here, I have the spiral dates and the spiral components. And the buy and sell signals I have in a separate column that start over here, and I have it multiplied by that number to say whether the market would go up or down. So this is the data, starts January 2nd at 5 o'clock, 2017, and the S&P 500 on a buy and hold made just a one-lot E-mini, okay, the smallest unit of measure, made $21,300, and with the spiral made 19,900. So I created a chart of that. The green component is the actual results of the spiral. Okay, using the octet charge array. So this is the spiral results. This is the actual S&P 500 gain and loss. As you can see, what happened around December 7th, one of the singularity dates, it started inverting. So I haven't put any other components together to try to account for the different phase shifts. I just want to keep it simple. So that's 2017. You can see most of the year was it was beating the S&P 500 on a buy and hold basis, as opposed to day trading with 10-minute increments. Okay, so then what I did, then we'll look at the exact numbers again. So the difference is 21,300 compared to 19,900 with the spiral. Okay, using the pre-computed buy and sell signals into the future. All right, now I applied the same thing to 2018. It took me a while to do this, like all day. And I took the same data, pre-computed the spiral through November 5th, and that's when I cut off the real-time market bias application. As you know, they stopped feeding real-time data through Amazon Cloud, barchart.com, so I quit paying for my subscription on November 5th, 2018. It was 10-minute delayed data, and my idea was to rebuild the whole thing, the whole application again, and away from Amazon Cloud. So life got in the way of that. So anyway, so let's look at the 2018 results. So I started from January 1st at 5 p.m. and I ended on November 5th, 2018. And I tried all the different combinations on the octet charge array. Just the simple spiral component, just the simple ones, besides all the other aspects you can add with a divisor. And the results, as you know, 2018 was a bad year for the S&P 500. They only made, if you're on a buy and hold basis, $2,887. But with that same octet charge array configuration, I charted it as well. The spiral made $49,487.50. So the black is the real S&P 500. It's gain and loss for year in a buy and hold. And the green shows the spiral pre-computed buy and sell signals. So it sharply beat the S&P 500 using the pre-computed spiral data. Now, someone asked me, how do you apply it now to Forex? And we had that conversation, how do you apply it to gold, bonds, S&P 500, and any market? The answer to that's pretty simple. If you want to start from square one, what you do is you take the spiral component that I used, and you go through each of the combinations. It took me a little while to figure out what the best combination was. Some were better than others. I just picked out the best one, and I know I can improve it. Okay, based on the results, I can do an inverse function on 3 other octets and get better results. Okay, so the approach to apply it to the S&P, the Forex market, for example, or the gold, whatever it might be, I don't really care. You then knock through each of these combinations, which you can do with the spreadsheet, and you figure out what the best results are. It was basically a process of elimination. And then I did it for 2 years. I have the data, market data, going back 2012 in 10-minute increments, but I don't have it anymore. So that's going to be my goal, is to get up-to-date market information, or get the application up and running again. But it needs to be totally rebuilt. Though we have one that's running a Forex market right now, and that's running a bot based on using the time labels as pretty much a buy-sell, an arbitrage strategy. Doesn't have the spiral components in it. Nothing's pre-computed. So that's where I'm at right now, using this demo application in the Forex. It does all the time labels, etc. But again, I was asked to revisit 2017 and 2018 and see what the results would be if we stick with the same basic components and not add any of the more complex components to it. So just using the basic elements of it, using that octet charge array, it destroyed the S&P 500, right? So there's a way that you could dampen, add another inverse function to one of the octets to get this to invert or go sideways and go up. But I only did it with the basics. I just ran through each one. I didn't add some of the inverse functions that could be added to it. I hope that makes sense, but that's the result. I hope my friend in Dallas enjoys it. He asked me to do it, and I did it. So, but I don't have any real-time data from November 5th, 2018. I cut off my data feed. So that's pretty much it from the warehouse. 7442 Analytics. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, put them in the comments section below. That was a pretty quick run-through of our discussions over 2 years of live broadcasting on YouTube. Okay. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, comments, comment below. You can send me an email as well. Simply ask, and I'll figure out a way to get it to you. All right. Hope you had a good day. Hope to talk to you soon. I'll probably be broadcasting again after this revelation. So that's it. Kind of want to keep this stuff to myself, but I think I was told not to. All right. Have a good day. Bye now.